I can look.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to WP Roundtable. Kyle and Mark are having their own conversation, so we just went on without them. And we'll just have to start the show. I'm Jason Crawford, coming to you from Medellin, Colombia, and we've got another great guest on today who's done some really interesting WordCamp talks that I'm hoping to ask some more questions about as we go on. But I'll pass it off and see who wants to introduce themselves next.
I guess I'll go. There. I am Mark. I am with WordPress, and we make Desktop Server, which is like a really cool local development piece of software. And on to whoever's next.
Who could it be? How about me? Hey guys, I'm Kyle. I'm the co-founder of a little marketing agency that you've never heard of. We serve clients that you've never heard of, and we make some products you've also never heard of. But they're all cool. Take my word for it. I'm really excited to be here for episode 61, and we've got a very special guest with us, Mr. Mendel Kurland. Thank you for being with us, kind sir. Why don't you introduce yourself real quick?
Well, hello there. I'm Mendel, and I'm the GoDaddy Evangelist. I fly around the world and hang out with geeks for a living, which is awesome, and I love it. Looking forward to being on the show. Thanks a lot for inviting me, guys.
We are pretty stoked to have you, Mendel. Thanks for joining us. I think this is going to be a pretty good time. We got a ton of questions for you. It's a pretty unique position that you've got, and you get to do some cool stuff that we want to know more about. So before we dive into that, we got to cover our quick picks of the week. All right. So first of all, I'm going to throw my quick pick at you. It's kind of a silly one that probably nobody cares about and is a little self-serving, but I just last week had my first Easy Digital Downloads extension go live on the EDD store. So you can go to easydigitaldownloads.com, check out the add-ons, and I made one called Product Comparisons, and it was really fun to make my first premium EDD extension. It was a cool treat. I worked with Pippin and some of the other guys at the EDD team to make that, to launch it, and it helps you if you're using EDD to run a store, allow customers to do that little thing that you'll see on e-commerce stores where you can select a few products and then generate a comparison, and it'll show them side by side with all of their attributes and stuff. It's pretty sweet. Pretty proud of it. So yeah, check it out if you use EDD.
Okay, I'll jump in then. Mine is a recommendation from Sarah Cannon last week after the show was over, and it is Papyrus Condensed. Obviously, the coolest font ever. I will be throwing a link to that in the show notes right now. And for those of you that love Papyrus like I do, it's awesome.
Wow. I don't even know how to follow up on that one. So I want to talk about Comic Sans. No, I really don't. I actually have two picks. One of which was today's water cooler was pretty good. It had like a whole plethora of really smart people talking about really smart things, which was like, you know, various reasons why you get a white screen, how you get a white screen, what to do about white screens, stuff like that. And then the other one is Milwaukee WordCamp. Speaker submissions are open. Please submit your talk to Milwaukee WordCamp. Milwaukee WordCamp, the most fun you will have at a WordCamp ever.
Especially in Milwaukee, right?
Or worldwide on this planet.
Yeah, Milwaukee was pretty awesome last year.
It was, yeah. Mendel was here last year, and yeah, we make it a point to make it a really fun WordCamp, and you learn a lot, and lots of good food, lots of good fun, and it's a cool place to hang out.
So is it my turn? Do I get to go now?
Yeah.
Sweet. All right. So so I'm gonna do 1.5 if that's cool. So Sumo Me. I've seen it used on a bunch of websites lately. There's a plugin for it, and it's this JavaScript. I think it's JavaScript list builder, heat maps, things like that for your site. It's pretty cool. It lays over the top of your WordPress site and lets you build your mailing list, which is pretty rad. And the half I have is just the new GoDaddy Pro site, GoDaddy.com/pro. It's pretty cool. Manage clients and stuff like that. Sorry, shameless plug, guys.
And why was that only a half?
Well, because I want to sneak it in there, you know.
Ah.
So I was just like, you know, wedging it in there.
Wedging it in there. All right. Well, we've got a lot more to wedge into this episode. So
nice transition. I like that.
Wow. Very well done, Kyle.
All right. Moving on, guys. We've got a lot to talk about because the world wants to know more about Mendel. So, kind sir, thank you for joining us, and we've got a lot of questions for you. Let's start at the beginning. Mendel, can you take us a few steps back, maybe a lot of steps back? Before you were a GoDaddy Evangelist, before you were doing all the cool stuff you are now, you had a long journey to get there. I want to learn a little bit more about that journey. Like, let's take us to the beginning. You know, what was the start for you of getting on this this path to where you're at today?
Yeah, probably all started. I thought I was super unique when I used to tell this story, but apparently there are many people that started in this way. But I bought a computer when I was a little kid, and I decided that I was going to take that computer apart. Right? I spent so much money on it as a little kid. You know, like a few $100 is so much cash for a kid. You know, just saving up allowance and stuff. So I bought this thing. I ripped it apart. My mom came up. It was like I don't know, maybe 10 hours after I got it, you know. And my mom came up to my room and she's like, "What are you doing? Like, why is this? Is there something wrong? Because this computer was in pieces." And I was like, "No, Mom. I'm just taking it apart so I can see how it works, and then I'm gonna put it back together." And I put it back together. But I actually learned a really important lesson, and that was always look for all your screws, because I decided that if there's one screw missing, no big deal. It turns out if that screw happens to be sitting on a circuit board that happens to have live power going through it, then you might happen to short out your motherboard. So. Whoa. Yes. So that is taking you way back. Is that too far? Do you want
No, that's awesome. Let's start the journey. That's really exciting. Shorting out motherboards is a good start.
Yeah.
Becoming where you are today.
Yeah. So what else do you want to know about the origins? I learned Pascal and C++ in high school as a freshman, and a little bit of Visual Basic, and went on from there to go to college, and that was a wild time because I created a startup and did some Java programming in college, but then promptly got kicked out because I never went to class. I was just programming all the time.
What did you major in college?
I started with psychology. Well, no. I started with computer science, and then I got kicked out for programming. So I was like, wow, that's not working out. So then I went back for psychology.
So you got kicked out of computer science for programming.
Yeah, it was weird.
All right.
That makes sense.
Yeah, we made a pretty popular social media site that you could check bar specials, sports scores, and stuff like that. And it was pretty fun. But then I went back for psychology and then business, and then 14 years later, about a year ago, I finally got my degree in MIS because I wanted to just finish what I started, you know. So, but that's like my formal education is probably the least interesting of my my growth into where I am now. So.
No. Well, it's not interesting. We could move into that startup you mentioned and your professional pursuits during and post-college.
Yeah. So the name of the startup was called UI Life, and it was pretty cool because we were not only were we creating software, right, but we were like online software, but we were also then going from the technical stuff to selling ads and things like that to local bars and restaurants and doing websites for them. And so that's, yeah, I did some website work in high school, but that's kind of where I got my start with website stuff. It was a perfect lead generation engine, right? Back when the internet was just kind of getting started. Nice shirt, by the way. I didn't even realize that's the one you had on. But that's
Oh yeah.
uh, and so yeah, it was kind of how I was generating leads, and then I got some regular clients from that, and the startup ended up dying because I was kind of conflicted between school, startup, all that stuff, and outsourced some of the creative work and ended up kind of killing it. But what remained were all these web clients that had really enjoyed, I killed the platform, but as far as the work we did for people, they loved it. We'd throw big elaborate parties for them. We would make their websites, make sure all of their schedules could be edited online. Some kind of progressive stuff for 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and yeah. So then I started slinging websites out of the back of my Jeep Grand Cherokee with a broken rear window. So that was weird. Yeah.
So I just wanted to pop in here. Speaking of your Jeep Grand Cherokee, you and I have had many conversations in the past, and I find everything that's led up to who you are today to be very fascinating. But one of the more fascinating stories that I know you talk about is kind of how you lived for a bit a vagabond lifestyle, living out of your car. I thought maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So I was a camp counselor for a summer camp, and I was a climbing instructor and a tripping instructor. Somebody that gets people ready to go out on trips for camping and hiking and stuff. One of my big passions in life. And I was doing some work with some kids, helping them climb and summit mountains. And so I had taken some people out to Colorado, and we were climbing mountains and summiting mountains, backpacking in Colorado. And I came back to Iowa. I'm doing client work in between, so as we're in like little mountain towns, I'm trying to connect to Wi-Fi to make updates on my client sites, right? And I got back in town, and I was like, well, I've been camping out all summer, so I should just like forget an apartment or something like that. That's just added expense, it doesn't make any sense. So I decided that I was just going to live out of my Jeep for like 6 months, and it was pretty interesting. I slept at a truck stop one night. Used to camp out a lot. I also had a cat with me, which was weird because I had a pet cat at the time. I ended up giving that cat away to a no-kill shelter because I thought maybe that was the more humane thing to do. But it was crazy. And so then what I would do is I would go to a hotel. I would stay the night in a hotel, right? Because I'm still making money all this time from my clients. I would stay the night in the hotel, and I would have a portable printer with me, and I would take a shower, clean up, get my clothes ready, and print out some of my literature and things like that for these small businesses to show them what packages I had and things like that. So it was it was a wild ride. I'm basically what anybody else would consider homeless, by choice, living out of a car and slinging websites. So I feel like I earned my stripes then. It was a good time.
Awesome. So, like, what were these clients that you were serving, and where were you getting them? I mean, if you're like on the road, you're not like establishing yourself in like some local community. Probably much. Where are they coming from? What kind of businesses are they?
Well, so a lot of the clients I had were holdovers from when I started UI Life, and so they loved the work that I did, and they, it was just insane loyalty. And they were bars, one property management company, restaurants, anything from college restaurant to upscale dining. So I was doing that, and then word of mouth. People would tell other people, hey, this guy can hook it up, give him a call. And so I get a random call I did a hair salon once, a clothing boutique at one point, and some of the struggles. It's funny. I look back at some of the things that I did, and I started to create this standardized list of like what you got with each package and stuff like that. And now I look at struggles that people are having in the WordPress community, creating businesses around building websites, and see all of those things that I was going through back then, and it really, I don't know, it gives me a special appreciation for helping to solve those problems and what I'm doing now. So it's pretty fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you guys are doing a lot to help kind of a small agency, I think. That's pretty awesome. So what was next for you? You were freelancing, doing your own thing, and then did you go straight to GoDaddy eventually?
No, so I took, I've met people in the past that have said, I can't get this job because I don't have the experience, or I can't do this because I don't know how. And one of the first jobs I got, my first corporate job, was a job at a large institutional music company, and they hired me as a web producer. That was the actual job title. And my resume had everything that I had done up until then in my freelance career, creating websites for other people, the marketing that we did to market businesses through promotions and parties and things like that. And the music company that I applied for, they were really excited about my experience, and I also had a great recommendation. And so I started working as a web producer and was soon promoted to director of web development. Had a few people that were working on the team, and it was ASP.NET and Joomla, right? It was Joomla content, ASP.NET, integrating with some back-end ERP systems and things like that, some enterprise stuff, inventory, working on inventory quantities and things like that, making sure that they were in sync between stores and online fulfillment and stuff like that. And so that's kind of where I jumped off into the corporate world. And the same buddy was like, hey, you should come work for GoDaddy. And I was like, man, that sounds really cool, because all I had heard about GoDaddy was like this like I knew them as this cool web host, right? That I had seen a million times online, and I was like, oh my god, I can work for a tech company. That's pretty awesome. And so I started doing online advertising and podcast advertising for GoDaddy. So I was buying ads and things like that. And one of the shows, I remember being in Las Vegas and hanging out with Kevin Rose and Alex Albrecht, if you guys know who those fellas are. But the guys that did Dig Nation on Revision 3, and that those times were a blast, but I wasn't a huge fan of the same work every day. You're looking at a new a new placement or something like that, and a lot of fun to hang out and learn from all of the people that that we sponsored and stuff like that. But I was looking for a little less repetitive tasks in my workday. So of course, like everybody else, I got antsy and decided to make something.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. So before we dive in too much into your role today and what you do, because we're pretty interested in that, I always like to ask about, especially for people who are freelancing for a little while, do you have any fun stories about projects gone wrong?
Yeah. I remember this one in particular. It still gives me the shivers, when I think about it. But I was creating a website for a company in Iowa City, and I had the website done, and I was all ready to throw it in and implement it. And so I went into the FTP, and I removed the entire old site, and I uploaded the entire new site, and I swear I tested it a million times locally. And I uploaded it, and because of a PHP difference or something like that, there's like a version difference. All of a sudden, I realized that my site didn't work. I couldn't recover the old files because I didn't pull down a backup. And it was like, I don't know, 4 o'clock on a Friday. So I was all ready to go out, have fun in downtown Iowa City. And instead, I spent like, I don't know, until 4 in the morning making sure the site was working correctly. And I know it's one of those struggles that most people have. It's like the dog ate my homework, or those types of things where you just want to throw your hands up and say, I'll deal with this tomorrow, but the client doesn't care, right? They want it done because their website isn't working. And so it sucked. It was a bad moment, but I made it work. So yeah, that was probably one of my roughest. I still remember the coffee shop I was sitting in. There's nobody there. It's like so early in the morning, and I'm just pounding away, and almost on the verge of like tears, right? Because I'm like, this sucks. I have to reproduce so much work. So
yeah. That sounds pretty lousy. Yeah, but we've all got stories like that.
Yeah.
It's the client game. It's challenging. So tell us about your sorry. Talk about what it's like to be a WordPress evangelist at GoDaddy.
Yeah,
what is your role? What do you do day to day?
Yeah, it's a pretty fun, pretty dream job-ish sort of role. Spent a lot of time on airplanes, and I spent a lot of time listening to the stories of people in the community. A lot of the time isn't spent talking; it's learning, right? Learning from, what are the struggles, right? What do developers and designers and freelancers go through on a daily basis? Some of those I know from my experiences, and some of those struggles have changed over the years with new tools and things like that. And so it's learning a lot about that, learning a lot about what people's perceptions of GoDaddy are and things like that, and then helping to kind of tell the new story of GoDaddy, and kind of how the GoDaddy world has changed, and upgraded a lot of things like products and brand, and dropped some of the other stuff that that everybody or a lot of people remember about our advertising and things like that. So it's a really fun job. It's tiring sometimes, right? Like sometimes I'm sitting in an airport and I'm on my way somewhere, and I'm like, oh man, I'd love to be home right now because I have some friends that I want to hang out with or something. And then once I get there, I'm like, I don't want to be home because these people are my friends, right, too. And the energy that comes from WordCamps and from other places, because I went to RailsConf and things like that. So it's not just WordPress. But when I get there, the energy and the excitement and the passion and all of that is just really energizing for me, really exciting.
Wow.
So, Mendel, when you started working for GoDaddy, I know, I suspect that you kind of knew what you were getting yourself into, taking a company that kind of had developed a bit of a rough reputation and going in and turning it around. What did you go in with an absolute strategy, or did you kind of figure it out as you went along to get to where I mean, it's probably what, a year and a half later, and I think that you've done quite a tremendous job with helping the GoDaddy brand along.
Thanks. Yeah. So first of all, it's not just me. If if I were to go out into the community and work on community building, and work on learning things from the community, and we had a product team that wasn't making changes, or a brand team that wasn't making changes, it wouldn't work, right? So the fact is that the entire organization is engaged in the process of making change. And when I came into this particular role, it was kind of a no-brainer for me, because I knew all of the things that had been changing, right? So I had seen those firsthand, and the only issue then was figuring out creative and interesting ways, and frankly, genuine ways to tell the community those stories, right? The stories that I had seen. I've worked for GoDaddy a little over 6 years, so I've seen it from the days of questionable advertising to to now, right? And the change has just been extraordinary. And so I strategy's the same now as it was when I took the job, and that is keep looking at what developers and designers and freelancers and small businesses and all of these people want, and taking that and translating it into products and brand and community outreach that makes sense and that helps people be better at what they do.
Do you consider yourself like part of public relations in any way? Like, I'm interested in so many entities and things have to deal with public perception and changing negative public perception when it exists and stuff. WordPress has it. There's so many circles, especially from the past, outdated circles who are just down and hard on WordPress, for whatever in the past, and we have to deal with that all the time. It's public perception and change it. It's always like an interesting challenge that's very persistent, and there's always so many, like you said, unique ways of dealing with that. So it's really interesting to hear you talk about like how you approach it, what your sense of of the whole public perception is, and what steps like you think are necessary. Just the whole topic is fascinating.
Yeah, so to your original question, do I consider myself a part of PR? I think everybody in the company is, to some extent, PR, right? Everybody in the company should be telling the story, of how things change and how things have changed, and I think they do. Again, it's not just me, right? It's plenty of people. I happen to have the plane tickets and things like that, and get to be the guy to come on shows like this to talk with you guys. But it's everybody in the company that is evangelizing, and so obviously that makes my job easier. I'll tell you that on a technical level, I am within the product development organization. So when I have feedback that comes from the community, I bring that directly back to the product team, to the weekly prioritization meetings to get stuff changed, fixed, upgraded, stuff like that. So yeah, I consider everybody a part of PR, everybody a part of outreach. If we're doing our job right, which I firmly believe we are, then everybody should be excited about what we're doing and telling people about it. So.
Sure. Well, I think you're doing a lot of really cool things. So.
Thanks.
So there's a whole lot of other stuff we wanted to ask you about. Let's see, do you ever get to do any coding or development projects anymore, and do you even care about that?
Yeah, so I do. I've done a few things, few funny things over the past couple of years. I don't have development as something, a job requirement, right? That's not what I do. I don't work on the code for our products. And what are some of the fun things that I do? So I keep my development chops by working on my own site, right? So I spend a lot of time working on Mendel.me and figuring out how to do new things, interesting things. Just switched. All the Genesis folks will be happy. I kind of graduated from Divi and the drag and drop stuff um, to Genesis and started playing around with developing specifically for Genesis, which has been fun just to learn a new platform. Love Divi, by the way, but it was time that I needed to move to something else. So I've done that. My buddy and I we created a soda machine that you could tweet to, and it was like a 1960s soda machine. You could tweet to it, and it would vend a beer. So my buddy is an engineer, and so he did all of the chip development, and I created an API to feed it out to Twitter. So it just different goofy stuff to experiment and learn and have fun and try new things. So
That's pretty funny.
So I've got a few questions on some of your past WordCamp presentations.
cool.
Hopefully I won't be like throwing you under the bus here.
I feel good about it. Bring it on.
So give away the farm to get the ranch. You talked about educating your clients before you even start the project, which I thought was really interesting way. And you gave a few examples of where you find these people. Have you continued to do this? Have you heard any feedback from this? Maybe some great places where people can go and start these meetings to educate their potential clients?
Yeah, I think it all starts with research, right? So the first thing is you have to figure out where your preferred demographic hangs out, right? So if you're looking for restaurant owners, you got to look at restaurant associations, things like that. There are meetup groups too for small businesses in local areas. So that's the first thing I would say. The second thing is, go to meetup.com. There's a trove of meetups there that you can start participating in. But the biggest piece of advice, and you'll hear me say this a million times about a million things, is be genuine and don't inject yourself into a situation that you don't have anything to offer, right? And so if you're going to go to a meetup just to sell people, then it's probably not the right angle. I will say that I've spent a ton of time as kind of one of my R&D things that I did at GoDaddy. I worked on education as a kind of a workshop in a box sort of thing. And so kind of fine-tuned this whole idea of creating workshops for people to figure out how to get online. And it was pretty cool because the response that I got from the people that attended the workshops was incredibly positive. I think whenever you give somebody something, whenever you help somebody do something, they will always think that it's incredible, even if they seem a little frustrated, because it's difficult to learn a new skill or something like that. Afterwards, they'll be like, "Man, I learned a lot." So if you're genuine, if you help people create, create websites, they will come back to you as clients, I think.
Excellent. And maybe could you give us an outline of what these presentations, maybe not too specific, but what these presentations consist of? You talked about teaching them everything they need to know to learn a website, to build their own website, and I'd just like to hear maybe kind of some of the highlights you hit when you're giving these types of presentations.
Yeah. So quick onboarding, right? Figure out the quickest and the easiest way to get them to the point of starting their site. Cut things down to the bare minimum. So you don't need to talk about necessarily calls to action and things like that. Um, you know, contact form, hours of operation, things like that, real basic things. So make sure they have that, and make sure they know the basic building blocks for creating or changing a particular. If they're using a website builder, they know how to change things. If they're using WordPress, they know how to change things, right? They know how to get in there and edit themselves. Those are empowering things that you can give to a small business owner that they're going to use time after time. So give them all the essential tools, right? It doesn't need to be a complex site, because if you think back to when you started creating sites, you didn't just create the most complex site that you can create now, right? There was a learning curve. So you have to help walk them through that learning curve as well.
Excellent. Oh boy. Why you should implement structured data right now? Can you just kind of give us a quick rundown on that? Because it seems to me like with the changes that have gone on in Google, this should have kind of been done a long time ago, but you're talking about doing it, now in 2015, when a lot of people are kind of dropping it and saying, okay, this is no longer important if Google's not going to be looking at authorship or placing author snippets or something like that. And so I found you talk on that very interesting. I was wondering if maybe you could kind of hit the highlights on that real quick.
Yeah, the reality is Google picks a new piece of structured data to highlight like every week, right? And then they drop it, and then they pick something else, and then they drop that. They were doing, I think now there's still star reviews in Google results, but they've dropped like you said, authorship. They used to put a little face of the person who made the article, their Google Plus profile. The reality is we don't know what Google's going to do next, and so if you can organize your website in a way that is easy to understand by Google, by Yahoo, by Bing, all that stuff, you're just better off, right? The amount of time to implement it is pretty low, and the benefit could be pretty high. Right, so on a week-to-week basis, who knows how it changes, right? Google just decides to do what they want to do. They're their own company, so I say implement it because it's silly not to. I know probably a silly way to say it, right? Because it seems like I'm telling people to do extraneous things, but it can boost your search results. I know right now on my personal blog, I blog a lot about coffee, and I have structured data on there for each restaurant, and I'm showing up pretty high on the results for each coffee bar. So is structured data helping? I would assume so, among many other signals. So.
Plus, during that presentation, you get to color a unicorn.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was not. I was rather disappointed I didn't get to color a unicorn watching it from my computer screen. So maybe next time you can provide materials where people can print out their own unicorn to color in.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe I'll talk with the WordPress TV people and see if we can add a little link there to the worksheet.
You can talk to me about it.
I was going to say, talk to Kyle. He'll help you with that.
Nice.
So you mentioned earlier that you do a lot more than just the WordPress world. You go to Joomla conferences and Drupal conferences and all these, and a few weeks back you did kind of an interesting article, blog post on what the WordPress community could learn from these other open source platforms. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
I thought it was an interesting article, and I think you could have gone to even more in depth than you did, but it was a blog post, so.
Yeah, I have. It's funny. I have personal opinions. I have professional opinions, and you kind of get a mix of those when it comes out in a blog post. My feeling is this: open source is awesome. Right? Part of what makes open source awesome is that it's open source, right? They're so many people. Anybody can pick it up, look at the source code, look at everything surrounding the particular community. Look at basically look inside, see the innards of a particular project, right? And for people from Drupal not to be interested in what WordPress is doing, or WordPress interested in what Drupal is doing, it's just silly, because we all have brilliant people in our communities, and we're all doing brilliant things, and we should be sharing the wealth, right? Understanding how each community solves problems, and learning from that, and making our own projects better. And in doing that, in sharing our own projects and how our own projects are getting better, then helping the opposite project to get better. I spend time with Drupal and I spend time with WordPress. I love both communities. Like I said, smart people in both communities, and there are plenty of strengths to go around. So I wrote that article because I was seriously, like I said, I have personal opinions too, and if you corner me at a at a WordCamp or a Drupal conference, I'll give them to you. But I feel pretty strongly that we should all be sharing, and that we should all be learning from each other.
So if I were to corner you right now,
yeah.
What would you say is the number one, just one thing that you think that the WordPress community could learn from the Drupal community? And then likewise, what would be the one thing you think the Drupal community could pick up from the WordPress community?
Yeah, so I think the WordPress community can pick up cultivating interest groups from the Drupal community. I think they do that very, very well with birds of a feather sessions. And by the way, it's not just Drupal, although I've seen it quite a bit in Drupal. Birds of a feather happen in many other tech conferences, but this is where you kind of organically create. You let people self-select what groups they identify with, and this could be anything. It could be centered around a technology or a way of life, or a vertical, any of those things.
So it goes beyond, say, tracks like what we would have in the WordPress community.
Yeah, this
a little
is a
more
way
drilled down than that.
Yeah, this is a way for you to associate with a particular interest group. So let's say you're really interested in the inner workings of Apache, and how Apache can be optimized to work with WordPress better, right? There are some people that don't want to geek out on Apache. They could care less, right? But because they just know it works. But there are other people that are like, oh yeah, I want to geek out on Apache, and I want to talk about optimization and things like that. So there's that. Maybe it's veterans. WordPress developers that are also veterans, and there are interesting topics that come up surrounding some of those interest groups, right? So it's really kind of cool what Drupal does, how they have those different groups within their community. As far as what Drupal can learn from WordPress, man, I think the way, and I need to spend some more time seeing this, and I will this year, but I think there are interesting community aspects in both organizations or both communities, and I hesitate to make any comments about this right now until I've seen more, right? But I would say that WordCamps and Drupal camps probably can learn from each other. Just that as a construct, right? That as a venue for learning. Drupal does onboarding, sometimes paid onboarding, and they push sprints really hard when they're trying to get people to contribute to a Drupal version. WordPress calls it contribution day, doesn't call it sprints, and presses on contribution harder than actual the word sprint, which typically implies more developer focus instead of translations and things like that. All of these issues are important to both communities, though. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think I know enough to say yet what I think Drupal can learn. I'm sure there are plenty of my friends from the Drupal community though that have some ideas. So maybe I'll hit them up and ask them to write a post.
So I got a couple questions for you, Mendel.
Yeah.
A lot of things I want to just like hear your opinion about, because like you're a big part of your job, as you've kind of described and as I understand it, is getting your finger on the pulse of the community and kind of understanding what their pain points are and their demands and desires, especially from a hosting perspective.
Yeah.
But I consider you as somebody pretty well informed, or makes it his business to be informed about what the community cares about and wants and where it's going. So as such, like, there's all these topics that I'd just love to hear your opinion on and your thoughts, because you're that guy. So I'm just going to shoot some things at you, and you're going to just tell me what you think.
Cool.
All right, real candid. The customizer. What do you think?
I think it's an interesting topic.
Whoa.
I think there are a lot of really smart people that have weighed in on how they feel about it. I think plenty of people have talked about their guttural emotional responses to it. Plenty of people have talked about the way it will impact their business, or will, they perceive the impact. Plenty of people have talked about it on all sides. It's one topic in particular that I'm probably going to let the experts answer, and I'm going to steer clear. I'm sure you wanted something more polarizing and interesting than that, but
I do.
But listen, we're doing all right as a project, and I would assume that if there's a problem, we'll address it as a community, and if there's not a problem, then we will just move on and keep being successful and growing. So.
All right. Well,
we're kind of a self-regulating community, like.
Yeah.
If there's a big problem and people start losing business because of a change made to the project, I would assume that we'll take a look at it, and
Right.
and if not, then we're moving on, right? So I say listen to all the conversations on Facebook, the Advanced WordPress group, people's blogs and things like that. It's interesting.
Definitely is. It definitely is. There's a lot of talk going on. I don't remember too many recent changes or topics relating to core development that seem so contentious.
Yeah.
Maybe you could remember some.
Yeah, like here's the deal though. This is what I go back to, and again, not as polarizing as you'd probably like, but you have to look at how it affects your business, right? How it affects what you're doing for clients, and if it affects them in a positive way, then cool, and if it affects them in a negative way, then you have to figure out a way to get around it, right? And I don't know what that solution is, right? But who knows? Maybe somebody will make make a plugin that will bring back the legacy menu item.
I believe someone already did create a plugin that gets rid of the customizer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It does exist.
So I mean, again, self-regulating, right? People will do what they have to do to make things work for their clients. So.
Sure. Okay. Well, I'll take that. So, what do you think about? I mean, you're involved in some other communities, and so you might have some good perspective on this. What's your take on just pricing in the world of WordPress? Where are we at? Are we low? Are we good? Are we growing? Are we sinking? Are we just products, services, everything? Where is it?
Pricing in what context? In the context of hosting, in the context
In
of
the context,
services,
well,
or?
from the perspective of providers, out there, everybody trying to make a living in WordPress, and especially, holding up against other communities that you're aware of that are comparable. Where's the world of WordPress? Are we cheap? Are we premium? Are we priced well for the market?
Yeah, I think it depends. So I don't think that's specifically a WordPress question. I think that's an industry question, right? So people that create websites for other people, where are you priced, right? So to generalize and say that WordPress is priced higher or lower, that Drupal is priced higher or lower is kind of weird to me, because you have enterprise sites on both platforms, right? And so like those sites are going to go for a lot more than a $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 site that you're selling to a small business. There are people that certainly have pricing issues within just the web development community as a whole, that don't charge enough for the good work that they do. On the other end, there are people that charge far too much for too little work or too little expertise. So I would say there's a problem with accurate pricing in any web development community. But so Chris Lemma did an interesting talk. I forgot where it was. I think it was was it in Florida? Yeah, it was in Orlando, I believe. And he was talking about value-based pricing. And I think it's a real thing to consider. How you price things, should be, in some ways, should be based on, when they need it, how bad they need it, things like that, and your skill level, of course, and your ability to produce. So, yeah, I think pricing is not an issue just specific to WordPress.
Interesting. All right. Quite an answer. You're a very contentious character, Mendel.
I know. Let me tell you, I'm trying to polarize a bit.
All right. Last one here. How about the future? And of course, you've got perspective on this. The future of the world of WordPress hosting. What does that look like? Where do you think this is going? The market, the demand, the offerings, the competitive advantages, the differentiators between companies? Just throw predictions out there.
It seems that we've seen a trend for hosts to cater more towards specific needs of WordPress. Right? We see plenty of companies out there that are doing that, including GoDaddy. Trends probably to get tighter with the community. At least I know, what we're planning on doing is spending more time in the community, learning more, and making a product that's tuned better for WordPress, right? Beyond that, as far as where the industry as a whole is going, I think you'll probably see more people using managed WordPress, right? Some sort of managed service to handle some of the hard aspects of hosting. And I'm kind of biased towards the customer management angle of things, because that's what we've been working on with the GoDaddy Pro program. But I'm all about trying to help people overcome obstacles, right, in how they're interacting with their customers. So things like client management, making that super easy, managing other people's products. So who knows? Maybe we'll set the trend and other people will follow. I don't know.
That's fine. It wouldn't be the first time that GoDaddy pioneered some great things in the hosting space. So keep that up. So we're really, getting down to the wire here at the end of our show. It's been awesome. I've got just a couple wrap-up questions here for you. First, I want to know, over the course of this, I really want to hear your answer. Over the course of the next year, where are people going to bump into you in person? Where are you going to be physically that you know of?
Yeah, first of all, I'll be at WordCamp Europe next week, so you can find me in Spain. Buy a glass of wine or a fantastic coffee. Other than that, I'll be generally at WordCamps. I believe Baltimore is one coming up, as well as plenty. New York, all over the place. So you can expect to see me out there where duty calls, and you can expect to see some of my colleagues out there as well, doing the same type of thing and learning from the community and bringing stuff back. So I'll be all over. You'll see me.
All right. Well, I look forward to seeing you. I'm going with you in the next few months, and I'd love to bump into you and hang out. Who are some folks that you would recommend we invite on for future episodes?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Have you guys had Tracy Apps on the show?
We haven't. That's a good suggestion, though.
She's a good one.
You should get Tracy on.
You're going to be good.
I'm calling her out right now. Somebody should tweet at her and copy me and be like, Mendel is calling you out.
I'm on it.
I think she lives like 10 minutes from me. I should just go knock on her door.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would encourage you to have somebody on from the Drupal community.
Hey, what about that? You have anyone in particular you can hook us up with?
I'll send you my thoughts. I'll send you some people.
That would be awesome, I think.
Yeah. You know, what better way to start mixing it up than to bring somebody onto a WordPress show?
I don't know. You tell me.
Chinese restaurant.
I think last year at WordCamp Milwaukee we had somebody that was from Drupal or somebody do a presentation.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I think so, as I recall, or maybe it was Joomla. But yeah, it was a different platform.
Huh. That sounds fascinating.
I'm telling you, WordCamp Milwaukee, we set trends.
Maybe you are right. Maybe that is not what I've heard about it.
Have you guys had John Ekman on?
We will. We haven't yet.
Yeah. He's another good one, and he has some really interesting thoughts on Drupal and WordPress, and probably is a bit more articulate than I am on that particular subject. So
that's not possible.
You might want to chat with him.
Hey Mendel, it's been a pretty awesome episode, and we are super grateful that you took all this time to chat with us. So if you've got any last words to say, anything we didn't talk about, or anything you want to share, just promote, or tell people to hit you up, whatever, go for it.
Yeah. So first of all, thanks a lot for having me on. The pro program that I've been trying to edge into conversation throughout the evening is GoDaddy.com/pro. It's pretty cool. Check it out. Let me know what you think on Twitter. And my Twitter handle is @ifyouwillit. So give me your honest feedback. I'd love to hear it. I'm always around, always all ears. So
awesome. And for what it's worth, I've tried the pro program a little, and it's looking pretty cool. I love the direction. It seems like a awesome concept.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks a lot, Mendel. Episode 61 in the books. That was great.
Thanks, Mendel.
Thanks for joining us, Mendel.
Thanks, guys.